A very important guest. The Grandview Hotel hummed with an almost reverent stillness, permeated by the crisp aroma of lemon polish and the delicate perfume of freshly cut lilies, each bloom a testament to the meticulous preparations underway. In his opulent office, Mr. Harrison, his usually pristine suit jacket now slightly disheveled from habitual adjustments, restlessly traversed the plush carpet. Each turn brought him closer to the imposing mahogany desk, where a small, framed photograph of his late wife, Eleanor, offered a silent, grounding presence. Yet, tranquility remained elusive for Mr. Harrison. Mr. Lee, a name uttered with both deference and a hint of dread among the hotel's senior staff, was imminent. This enigmatic titan of industry, whose personal wealth dwarfed that of small nations, posed a unique challenge. He communicated solely in Mandarin Chinese. "Everything must be impeccable, absolutely flawless," Mr. Harrison murmured, his fingers once more adjusting the silk knot of his tie. His gaze swept over the impeccably arranged binders, the gleaming brass clock, the spotless window framing the bustling cityscape below. The Grandview was his enduring pride, his legacy. Mr. Lee's patronage represented a pivotal moment, a litmus test for its elite stature. A triumphant visit from such a distinguished guest could catapult the hotel's global standing, securing its prosperity for decades. Conversely, a solitary misstep, the mere contemplation sent a tremor through him. He snatched up the intercom. "Miss Jenkins, a final inspection of the presidential suite. Double-check the orchid arrangement, it must align precisely with Mr. Lee's specifications. And the humidifier, 55% humidity. Not 54, not 56, Miss Jenkins. 55. His voice, typically a smooth baritone, now carried a faint edge of strain. Emerging from his office, Mr. Harrison embarked on a personal tour of vigilance. The lobby's marble expanse gleamed, mirroring the intricate patterns of the frescoed ceiling. Crystal chandeliers shimmered, casting a soft, inviting radiance. He paused by the concierge desk, his eyes narrowing imperceptibly as they caught a lone speck of dust on a potted fern. "Evelyn," he stated, his voice quiet but commanding, causing the young concierge to flinch. "That fern has lost its luster. Replace it. Instantly." His stride purposeful, his senses acutely heightened, he moved on. The Grandview typically orchestrated a hushed ballet of efficiency, but today, every rustle of a uniform, every delicate clink of china, seemed magnified. He surveyed the grand ballroom, where the parquet floor received its final burnishing. He scrutinized the bar, ensuring all rare spirits were arranged with meticulous precision. In the main dining room, he observed waiters transforming napkins into elaborate origami swans, his unwavering gaze missing nothing. He congregated his key personnel in a discreet huddle near the service entrance, shielded from potential guests. "Listen carefully, everyone," he began, his tone deepening with gravity. "Mr. Lee's arrival transcends a typical check-in. This is a monumental occasion for the Grandview. He wields immense influence, and his comfort and satisfaction are paramount. Every interaction, every nuance, no matter how minor, reflects upon us. Be attentive, be discreet, and for heaven's sake, be prepared." His gaze swept across their faces, seeking any trace of complacency. "Remember, he speaks only Mandarin. Our designated translator will be on site, but your professionalism must bridge any language gap. Project an aura of unwavering competence. Any questions?" Silence hung heavy. A young bellhop, recently trained, nervously adjusted his cap. Mr. Harrison's eyes lingered on him, a silent challenge. He could feel the underlying current of tension, the shared understanding of the high stakes. He trusted his staff, they were exceptional. But Mr. Lee operated on an entirely different plane. The pressure was immense, a tangible cloak settling over the entire establishment. He offered a tight, encouraging smile. Good. Now, return to your posts. Mr. Lee arrives in under an hour. As he walked away, a fresh worry pricked at him. What if the translator was delayed? What if Mr. Lee had an immediate, urgent request that couldn't wait? He instinctively reached for his tie once more, tugging at it, a knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. The perfect welcome, the flawless stay, everything hinged on the fleeting hours ahead. The translator's trouble. The Grand Regency's lobby thrummed with a nervous, yet exhilarating, energy. Crystal chandeliers glittered above a freshly buffed marble floor, reflecting the hurried movements of staff. Bellhops, usually sedate, practically jogged, their gold-buttoned jackets gleaming. Housekeeping supervisors, usually a picture of calm efficiency, barked polite but firm instructions, ensuring every pillow was fluffed to perfection, every silver tray polished to a blinding sheen. The scent of lilies, Mr. Harrison's personal touch for VIP arrivals, mingled with the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the breakfast lounge. Mr. Harrison himself, impeccably tailored in his charcoal suit, stood by the reception desk, his gaze sweeping across the scene like a hawk. His fingers, usually clasped neatly behind his back, tapped an anxious rhythm against the polished wood. Are the welcome baskets in Suite 701 and 702 precisely as per my specifications, Margaret? He inquired, his voice a low, steady drone that barely betrayed the tremor of excitement beneath. Margaret, the head concierge, a woman who could usually charm a smile out of a gargoyle, looked a shade paler than usual. Check them myself, Mr. Harrison. Imported fruit, artisanal chocolates, and the specific brand of jasmine tea Mr. Yeo requested. Everything is impeccable. A faint nod. And the temperature in the suites? Not too cool, not too warm. A comfortable 22 degrees Celsius. Set and verified, sir. Just as Mr. Harrison was about to launch into another query about the precise angle of the fruit display, the landline on the reception desk chirped, a surprisingly aggressive sound amidst the orchestrated calm. Sarah, the youngest receptionist, answered it, her smile plastered on even before she brought the receiver to her ear. Her expression, however, quickly curdled. Her eyes widened, flicking nervously towards Mr. Harrison. It's Mr. Lee, sir, she stammered, holding the phone out as if it might bite her. Mr. Harrison's brows furrowed. Mr. Lee was the Mandarin translator, painstakingly vetted, and hired weeks ago for Mr. Yao's crucial business meetings. He took the phone, his lips tightening into a thin line. Mr. Lee. Everything all right? He listened, his posture stiffening with each passing second. The rhythmic tapping of his fingers ceased. A vein began to pulse faintly in his temple. The color drained from his face, leaving it a stark, unsettling white against the dark backdrop of his suit. His grip on the receiver tightened until his knuckles stood out like small, white stones. I see, he managed, his voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to his usual booming tone. Pneumonia. A severe case. Understood. Of course, your health is paramount. Get well soon. He hung up, slowly, deliberately, as if performing a delicate, dangerous operation. He stood there for a long moment, the hum of the hotel suddenly seeming impossibly loud, the carefully curated scents of lilies and coffee assaulting his senses. The meticulous planning, the weeks of preparation, the immense pride he had in hosting Mr. Yao and his delegation, it all felt like it was crumbling around him. Mr. Harrison? Margaret ventured, her voice laced with concern. He turned, his eyes glazed, unfocused. "Mr. Lee," he announced, the words heavy and leaden, "has been hospitalized. He's out. Indefinitely." He looked at Margaret, then at Sarah, then back at the buzzing, oblivious lobby. The Grand Regency was ready for Mr. Yao. But without a Mandarin translator, they were, in essence, utterly deaf and mute. Panic, cold and sharp, began to claw its way up his throat. A fumbling welcome. A whisper, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, preceded the arrival. Mr. Harrison, perched on the edge of the grand lobby's plush sofa, felt his stomach clench. The valet, usually a picture of nonchalance, suddenly straightened, a subtle signal. Then, through the polished glass doors, a low purr materialized into a sleek, obsidian vehicle, longer and more imposing than anything usually parked at the grandeur. It wasn't flashy in an overt way, rather, its understated elegance screamed expense. The kind of car that didn't need to boast. Mr. Harrison sprang to his feet, adjusting his tie, a knot of nerves tightening in his chest. This was it. The moment of truth. He'd practiced his opening phrase countless times in front of the bathroom mirror, his tongue feeling like a clumsy foreign object. He took a deep, fortifying breath, the scent of expensive cleaning products and faint lavender filling his lungs. The valet, with a practiced flourish, opened the rear passenger door. A man emerged, not quite as imposing as the car, but radiating a quiet authority. He was of medium height, with kind eyes crinkling at the corners, framed by spectacles perched on a gentle nose. His suit, impeccably tailored, whispered quality without shouting for attention. He looked, to Mr. Harrison's relief, perfectly pleasant. Not the stern, unyielding titan he'd imagined. Mr. Harrison advanced, a practiced, welcoming smile plastered on his face. He extended a hand, then, remembering his carefully rehearsed plan, quickly retracted it into a shallow, almost imperceptible bow. "Nin hao, Li Shensheng," he began, the words feeling thick and alien on his tongue. He tried to project confidence, but the Li Shensheng came out sounding more like Li Xianshang, mangled and uncertain. He followed it with what he hoped was a fluid continuation, meant to convey, "Welcome to the Grandeur Hotel, we are honored to have you," but his brain, under pressure, scrambled the syllables. It emerged as a garbled, frantic string of sounds, something akin to "Guangling Da Judian, Women Zhen Da Fei Chong Rong Yao, Nim Shi." He trailed off, his carefully constructed sentence collapsing into a linguistic train wreck. Mr. Lee blinked. His kind eyes, which had initially held a polite, expectant gaze, now furrowed in puzzlement. A slight, almost imperceptible twitch played at the corner of his mouth, not quite a smile, not quite a frown, but a clear sign of confusion. He tilted his head slightly, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word. He seemed to be replaying Mr. Harrison's bizarre utterance, trying to decipher meaning from the linguistic chaos. Panic, hot and sharp, flared in Mr. Harrison's stomach. He could feel a flush creeping up his neck. His grand welcome, his diligently prepared cultural gesture, had backfired spectacularly. Mr. Lee looked less welcome and more like he was attempting to solve a particularly difficult riddle. Mr. Harrison's mind raced, desperate to retrieve the correct phrases, but they had all evaporated, leaving behind only a ringing silence and the palpable awkwardness of the moment. He tried again, a fresh wave of sweat prickling his hairline. "Women day, Qing Jin," he stammered, attempting to invite Mr. Lee inside, but even that simple phrase felt impossibly complex now. Mr. Lee's brow furrowed deeper. This was going horribly wrong. Lost in translation. Mr. Harrison, still reeling from the earlier incident with the spilled coffee and the enigmatic Mr. Lee, found himself back at the front desk, the hotel lobby now a cacophony of gentle chimes and hushed conversations. He smoothed down his tie, a nervous habit, and adjusted the small reserve sign on the counter. His earlier encounter with the guest had left him with a lingering sense of unease, a feeling that something important had been missed, or worse, misinterpreted. Then, he saw him. Mr. Lee approached the desk, his gait purposeful, his eyes scanning the lobby before settling on Mr. Harrison. A faint smile touched his lips, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Mr. Harrison braced himself, his mind replaying the awkward silence from moments ago. He took a deep breath, ready to offer his most polished, professional greeting. "Good afternoon, Mr. Lee. How may I assist you?" Mr. Harrison began, his voice a carefully modulated tone of welcoming efficiency. Mr. Lee responded, a rapid torrent of Mandarin cascading from his lips. It wasn't the measured, almost hesitant speech Mr. Harrison had encountered before. This was a furious stream, a cascade of sharp consonants and flowing vowels, each word seeming to tumble over the last. He gestured with one hand towards the lobby, then back towards himself, his brow furrowed in what appeared to be a question, or perhaps a demand. Mr. Harrison's mind, usually a well-oiled machine of hotel protocols and guest services, ground to a halt. The words washed over him, completely unintelligible. His carefully constructed professional facade began to crack. He felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple, a cold clamminess spreading across his palms. He understood nothing. Not a single word. The quick pace of Mr. Lee's speech only amplified his confusion, making it impossible even to guess at the general topic. Was he asking about his room? The check-in process? The breakfast buffet? It was all a blur of alien sounds. He stammered, I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. Could you repeat that, perhaps a little slower? He offered a strained, apologetic smile, hoping his tone conveyed genuine regret rather than utter bewilderment. Mr. Lee, however, seemed to interpret this as a sign that he hadn't been clear enough. He redoubled his efforts, his voice rising slightly, the Mandarin even faster this time, punctuated by more insistent hand gestures towards the back of the hotel, then a quick tap on his wrist. Mr. Harrison's face, usually composed, contorted into a mask of pure panic. The blood drained from his face, leaving a pale, clammy sheen. He tried, desperately, to communicate. He pointed a trembling finger towards the illuminated elevator panel, then made a looping motion with his hand, indicating up. He followed this with a confused shrug, his eyebrows raised in a silent plea for understanding. He even tried to mimic a door opening and closing, hoping to convey room. Each gesture felt more awkward than the last, his movements stiff and uncoordinated. The situation was spiraling, the silence between Mr. Lee's rapid-fire Mandarin and his own flailing attempts at charades stretching taut with unspoken frustration. Mr. Lee watched him, his initial half-smile completely gone, replaced by a look of growing impatience. He crossed his arms, his foot tapping a soft, rhythmic beat against the polished marble floor. The hotel manager, usually so poised, felt a flush of shame creep up his neck. This was a nightmare. A high-stakes guest, a language barrier, and his complete inability to bridge the gap. The carefully cultivated image of the impeccable manager was crumbling, piece by agonizing piece. He felt an intense urge to disappear, to simply melt into the elegant surroundings of his own hotel. Elena's quiet observation. The last stray petal of the morning's fresh-cut lilies found its place in the polished vase, a vibrant splash of white against the mahogany lobby desk. Elena Ramirez smoothed her apron, her movements efficient and quiet, the soft swish of fabric the only sound she made. The scent of spring blossoms mingled with the faint, comforting aroma of beeswax polish, a familiar perfume of her workday. She took a moment, a small, private pleasure, in the perfect symmetry of the arrangement before moving to dust a nearby display cabinet. Her attention, however, was quickly drawn away from the antique porcelain. Mr. Harrison, the hotel manager, stood a few yards away, his back to her, but his posture spoke volumes. His shoulders were hunched, his hands fluttering agitatedly at his sides as he attempted to communicate with a distinguished-looking guest. The guest, a man Elena recognized as Mr. Lee, the renowned tech mogul, wore an expression of polite bewilderment. He nodded occasionally, a slow, almost mechanical gesture, but his eyes, when they occasionally met Mr. Harrison's, held a deep-seated confusion. Elena watched as Mr. Harrison's voice, usually a smooth, reassuring baritone, rose in pitch, punctuated by strained laughs that sounded more like small, distressed yelps. He gesticulated wildly, his hands carving elaborate, if meaningless, shapes in the air. He pointed to the reception desk, then to a map on the wall, then back to Mr. Lee, as if sheer repetition of gesture would bridge the linguistic chasm. Elena caught snippets of English. The conference. Tomorrow. Important. But it was clear Mr. Lee understood none of it. His polite smile remained fixed, but the furrow between his brows deepened with each word Mr. Harrison uttered. A familiar pang resonated within Elena. She remembered her own early days in Guangzhou, a young woman navigating a bustling city where every sign, every conversation, was an indecipherable symphony. The frustration, the overwhelming sense of isolation, the desperate yearning to simply understand and be understood. She'd arrived with a smattering of phrases, enough to order food and find her way, but genuine communication had been a different beast entirely. It had taken months of diligent study, late nights poring over character strokes, and countless patient conversations with local shopkeepers to finally break through. The initial awkwardness, the mispronounced tones, the sheer terror of saying the wrong thing, it all flooded back to her. She had learned not just to speak Mandarin, but to hear its nuances, to feel the rhythm of its intonations. It had become more than a language, it was a key, unlocking a culture she had grown to cherish. Mr. Harrison made a final, desperate sweep of his arms, then buried his face in his hands for a fleeting second, his composure visibly fraying. Mr. Lee, observing this, offered a small, hesitant question in clear, if heavily accented, Mandarin. Mr. Harrison, of course, only blinked. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words and growing desperation. Elena straightened, her hands no longer smoothing the cabinet, but resting, poised, at her sides. A quiet confidence, born of memory and unexpected competence, began to stir within her. A voice of clarity. The air in the lobby was thick with unspoken tension, a palpable hum that vibrated through the polished marble and hushed whispers. Mr. Harrison, his face a roadmap of escalating panic, gesticulated wildly, his English words a rapid-fire assault that only seemed to further bewilder Mr. Lee. The millionaire, his brow furrowed in a mass of polite confusion, offered a series of placating nods and a sympathetic, "Oh, yes, thank you," that clearly indicated a complete lack of understanding. A small, anxious knot of hotel staff had gathered at a respectful distance, their gazes fleeting between their frantic manager and the increasingly flustered guest. Elena, tray in hand, had just finished tidying the ornate side table near the grand staircase. She'd been observing the unfolding drama for several minutes, a quiet observer of the language barrier's frustrating dance. Mr. Harrison's voice was now a strained whisper, punctuated by sharp, exasperated sighs. He pulled out his phone, scrolling furiously, no doubt searching for a translation app that would only offer stilted, unhelpful phrases. Mr. Lee, meanwhile, had begun to look genuinely distressed, his earlier politeness giving way to a subtle tightening around his eyes. He glanced around the opulent lobby, a silent plea for comprehension. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Elena placed the cleaning cloth neatly back into her caddy. This wasn't her usual role, to step into the spotlight, but the situation was clearly spiraling. With an uncharacteristic surge of resolve, she pushed her cleaning cart a few paces away, out of the immediate line of sight, and quietly approached the struggling pair. Neither Mr. Harrison nor Mr. Lee noticed her at first, so engrossed were they in their communicative impasse. Elena said, her voice clear and calm, cutting through the rising tide of frustration. The words, spoken in flawless, unaccented Mandarin, hung in the suddenly quiet air. Both men froze, turning as one to stare at her. Mr. Harrison's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with disbelief, as if a potted plant had just offered a philosophical treatise. Mr. Lee, however, experienced a profound shift. His bewildered expression melted away, replaced by an initial flicker of surprise, then a blossoming smile that transformed his entire face. The tension around his eyes evaporated, and a genuine warmth radiated from him. Mr. Lee exclaimed, his voice ringing with pure relief. He took a step towards Elena, his smile broadening into a wide, happy grin. Elena offered a small, polite bow, her own smile gentle. Mr. Harrison, still a gulpé, could only manage a strangled, "Elena? You speak." His voice trailed off, lost in the sheer unexpectedness of the moment. He looked from his star guest, now beaming and engaged in animated conversation, to his humble housekeeper, a silent question etched on his face. Mr. Lee, meanwhile, launched into a rapid explanation, his gestures expansive, his voice finally conveying the full weight of his request. Elena listened attentively, nodding occasionally, her gaze steady and reassuring. The previous wall of confusion had simply crumbled, replaced by a bridge of understanding, built by the most unlikely of architects. The unexpected translator. Mr. Harrison, still reeling from the sudden surge of hope and the accompanying dread of disappointment, watched with a mixture of bewilderment and faint irritation as Elena continued to converse with Mr. Lee. The cadence of their exchange was entirely foreign, yet the smiles exchanged seemed natural. Too natural, perhaps. He'd expected awkward gestures and strained efforts, not this fluid back and forth. Elena, usually so quiet and unassuming as she went about her duties, now stood with a relaxed posture, her hands occasionally making small, expressive movements as she spoke. Mr. Lee, a man who minutes ago had seemed a formidable, unreadable figure, was now chuckling softly, a genuine warmth radiating from him. "Elena," Mr. Harrison interjected, his voice a little sharper than intended, cutting through the pleasant murmuring. "Perhaps you could clarify for Mr. Lee that his room is ready?" He tried to infuse his tone with a professional briskness, hoping to reassert some semblance of control over the chaotic situation. Elena turned, her expression calm, completely unperturbed by his interruption. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Lee was just asking about the breakfast service hours and if the gym is open late tonight." She then addressed Mr. Lee again, a cascade of Mandarin flowing effortlessly from her lips. Mr. Lee nodded, then responded with a thoughtful expression. He also wanted to confirm the Wi-Fi password and if there's a good local restaurant recommendation for authentic Szechuan cuisine nearby, Elena translated, her gaze flicking between the two men. He said he prefers something not too touristy, if possible. Mr. Harrison blinked. This wasn't just rudimentary phrases, this was nuanced conversation. He found himself utterly speechless for a beat, his meticulous plans for the evening dissolving into a mist of irrelevance. He'd been rehearsing his apologetic smiles and the phrase, "no Mandarin speaker available," for the last 10 minutes, only to have it all rendered moot by his cleaning staff. "The breakfast is from 7 to 10, Elena, please tell him," Mr. Harrison managed, regaining a fraction of his composure. He then launched into a rapid rundown of the gym hours and suggested 2 Szechuan restaurants, one a well-known establishment, the other a smaller, family-run place he'd personally vetted. Elena absorbed it all, relaying each piece of information with precision. Mr. Lee listened attentively, his eyes alight with interest. He then spoke at length, his voice resonant and clear. Elena smiled. Mr. Lee says thank you for the recommendations. He's especially keen on the smaller Szechuan place. He also wants to express his gratitude for your exceptional service, Mr. Harrison, and for having such a thoughtful and capable staff member like me to assist him. She paused, a faint flush rising on her cheeks. He says the hotel clearly values its guests, and he looks forward to his stay. Mr. Harrison felt a peculiar blend of relief, embarrassment, and a burgeoning admiration. He looked from the beaming Mr. Lee to Elena, who stood there, unassuming once more, as if she hadn't just single-handedly salvaged his most important guest check-in. The tension that had gripped him for hours finally began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. Elena, he said, his voice softer now, genuinely appreciative. Thank you. Truly. Mr. Lee stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Elena's shoulder. He spoke directly to her in Mandarin, a genuine warmth in his tone. Elena nodded, her smile soft. He just said he feels very welcome, and that I made his long journey much easier, she translated, her gaze meeting Mr. Harrison's. He also wanted to say that my Mandarin is excellent, and he hopes to speak with me again. Mr. Harrison could only nod, a profound sense of relief washing over him. The unexpected translator had not only saved the evening but had elevated it. New roles, new respect. The tension that had gripped Mr. Harrison's chest for what felt like an eternity finally dissolved, leaving behind a profound lightness. The millionaire, Mr. Chan, was not just placated, he was genuinely charmed, a rare feat for the notoriously particular guest. Mr. Harrison watched as Elena, with a small, respectful bow, excused herself from the impromptu translation session, her movements as quiet and unassuming as ever. Elena. Mr. Harrison's voice, usually a clipped, authoritative tone, was thick with something akin to awe. She paused by the door, turning with a slight tilt of her head. He hurried towards her, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor. Elena, I don't know how to thank you. You averted a complete disaster. A diplomatic incident, no less. His usually pale face was now flushed with relief, a stark contrast to his earlier anxiety. He extended a hand, a gesture he rarely offered to staff below management. You were magnificent. Elena, caught off guard by the unexpected praise and the very public handshake, felt a blush creep up her neck. It was nothing, sir. Just happy to help. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but carried a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Mr. Harrison chuckled, a genuine, unforced sound. Nothing? Elena, you spoke flawless Mandarin. And you handled Mr. Chan's concerns with such grace. I was absolutely flummoxed. My staff, my trained staff, couldn't even understand a man, and you just stepped in. He ran a hand over his thinning hair, a self-deprecating gesture. I'm ashamed to admit, I completely underestimated you. He remembered the fleeting thought he'd had when he first saw her in the hall, a blur of a blue uniform, thinking of her only as part of the invisible machinery of the hotel. He'd seen her as a maid, a cleaner, a cop. Never once had he considered the depth of her intelligence, the breadth of her skills. The irony was a bitter taste in his mouth. He, the meticulous manager, had been blindsided by his own preconceptions. Your resourcefulness, your composure, It was truly remarkable, he continued, still marveling. A new idea, bright and compelling, sparked in his mind. Elena, your abilities are far too valuable to be confined to, well, to the usual duties. He straightened, his managerial posture returning, but this time infused with a new sense of purpose rather than stress. From now on, I want you present for all our important international arrivals. Especially those from Asia. You'll be our cultural liaison, our ambassador of goodwill. Elena's eyes widened slightly. The idea of being an ambassador was light years away from scrubbing bathtubs. She was used to being in the background, making things spotless and unnoticed. This new role, so public, so integral, felt both thrilling and slightly intimidating. Sir, I would be honored. Good. Excellent. Mr. Harrison clapped his hands together, a decisive sound. The weight of potential future linguistic dilemmas lifted instantly. He saw not just a solution to one problem, but a strategic advantage for the hotel. Elena wasn't just a maid, she was a secret weapon, a bridge builder. Consider it a new position, Elena. New responsibilities, of course, and a compensation package to match. We can't afford to let talent like yours go unutilized. He smiled, a genuine, warm expression that rarely graced his features. This hotel is about to become even more internationally renowned, all thanks to our new linguistic expert. Elena, still processing the sudden shift in her world, felt a quiet pride blossom in her chest. She had simply done what she thought was right, what was needed. And in doing so, she had opened a door to an entirely new future. The Grandview's special maid. The scent of lemon polish and fresh linens typically defined Elena's mornings, a comforting routine in the elegant corridors of the Grandview. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, smoothing duvet covers, aligning toiletries, her mind often drifting to the lively chatter of her abuela's kitchen back home. But today, the usual quiet hum of the hotel was punctuated by a rising note of international confusion. She was just about to push her cart past room 412 when a flustered bellhop, gesturing wildly, attempted to communicate with a bewildered Japanese couple. Their polite, apologetic bows only seemed to heighten his distress. Elena paused, a small smile touching her lips. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice clear and gentle, in crisp Japanese, "is there something I can help you with?" The couple's faces lit up, relief washing over their features like a warm wave. They explained, in rapid succession, their difficulty understanding the breakfast menu. Elena listened patiently, then translated the options with an ease that surprised the bellhop. "The chef's special today is a delightful miso-glazed cod," she explained, her tone inviting. The couple thanked her profusely, their smiles genuine and wide, before heading towards the dining room with renewed confidence. This wasn't an isolated incident. Over the next few weeks, Elena found herself increasingly sought out, not just for fresh towels, but for her linguistic gifts. A German businessman couldn't find his rental car key, Elena translated his frantic description to the concierge. A French family needed directions to the nearest historical museum, Elena, with a map in hand, provided precise instructions and even recommended a charming cafe nearby. Her ability to navigate these linguistic labyrinths, always with that unassuming, warm smile, began to ripple through the hotel's operations. Mr. Harrison, initially oblivious to the subtle shift, started receiving an unusual number of glowing guest reviews. "Exceptional service, especially from a maid who spoke perfect Italian," read one. Another praised, "The hotel staff went above and beyond, their multilingual capabilities are truly impressive." He'd scratch his head, then beam, attributing it to his general hiring prowess. One afternoon, however, he witnessed it firsthand. A group of wealthy Saudi Arabian guests, their faces tight with frustration, were trying to explain a complex dietary restriction to a young, overwhelmed waiter. Mr. Harrison felt a familiar prickle of panic. He began to stride towards them, rehearsing apologies, when a soft, clear voice in perfect Arabic chimed in. "Is there a problem, esteemed guests? Perhaps I can assist." It was Elena, her cart laden with cleaning supplies, her presence utterly unassuming. She listened, translated, and mediated, her voice a calm balm over the tension. The guests' expressions softened, and within minutes, the issue was resolved, their thanks directed entirely at Elena. Mr. Harrison stared. He knew she spoke Spanish, of course, and had heard whispers of her Mandarin skills from the Millionaire's visit. But Arabic? Japanese? German? He felt a flush creep up his neck. This humble maid, the woman he'd nearly dismissed for not fitting a certain front-of-house aesthetic, was single-handedly elevating his hotel's reputation. Later that day, he called her into his office. Elena, usually so composed, felt a nervous flutter. Had she overstepped? "Elena," Mr. Harrison began, his voice uncharacteristically soft, "I've been observing. And the guest feedback. It's remarkable." He paused, then continued, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "You've become, quite simply, the Grandview's special maid. And I mean that in the best possible way. We'd be lost without you." Elena, her heart swelling with a quiet pride, simply offered her warmest, most genuine smile. "It's my pleasure, Mr. Harrison. I just like to help." The Grandview, once a mere building, was now a beacon of hospitality, all thanks to the unassuming maid who spoke the world's languages, one kind word at a time.